Right, in this group of exemplars, we are going to be looking at outcome 4.1 from the Math 10 Foundations course, where students have to demonstrate understanding of factors of whole numbers by determining prime factors, greatest common factor, and least common factor. For a level 2, the student needs to be able to determine the prime factors of a whole number. A level 3 is they have to be able to find the greatest common factor and the lowest common multiple. And level 4 is that they can do situational problems. They are accurate in their work. In this first exemplar here, as you can see, the student is able to do the majority of the work. However, in question 1, where they are finding the prime factors, they made a multiplication error at the 3 times 10. 3 times 10 is not 60. However, the last line has all prime numbers, so they did technically understand how to find prime factors, so I would give them a 2 for that first step. Then they've done the greatest common factor right here, they've done the lowest common multiple, so they are now at a level 3. If you look at question number 4, they were able to interpret and determine that they had to find the lowest common multiple. They also stated the dimensions, which was part of the question. And then in question number 4, they were able to answer yes, but were not able to explain. Because of this error up here and the unable to explain part, I would give a 3.5 on this test because the student is able to do the basic skills, part of the interpretation, but they were not accurate in their work. In this assessment here, we have the level 2 question done correctly. The level 3 questions, they get the lowest common multiple. They showed the proper or improper strategy for finding greatest common factor, but never did name it. So what I would do before I even scored this, I would call the student up to my desk and I would ask them if they could tell me what the greatest common factor of those numbers were. Maybe they simply forgot to write it down. If they were able to tell me what the greatest common factor is, I would give them credit for that level. If they are unable to tell me what the greatest common factor is, automatically they would be at a 2.5 because they have not satisfied the level 3 requirement. Then I would look here. They did interpret that they had to find lowest common multiple, but they did not apply it to answer the question of what are the dimensions. Therefore, this student is either getting a 3.5 or a 2.5, depending on if they were able to answer question 2 when I called them back up. In this question here, the student has pretty much every question answered except the level 2. When I look at their work through the rest of it, I simply wonder if it becomes a vocabulary issue of prime factorization. So I would call this student up and I would say something to them maybe to the effect of, if I said to you, could you factor tree 120? Would you be able to solve this question? And if they are able to successfully show me the prime factors of 120, I would give this student a 3.5. They cannot be a 4. They didn't totally interpret this last question. As well, to be a level 4, they are a master and they need to know every part of it, and they did not understand the vocabulary of prime factorization. If even with some prompts, they still cannot give me the prime factorization of 120, the student would get a 1.5. They have not met the level 2 requirement, therefore I cannot give them higher than a 2. However, I would encourage the student to learn this and to come back and reassess it so that they could get to their level 3 or 4.
Okay, for this exemplar, I would give this student a level 3 because they've met the level 2 question is correct. Both level 3 questions are correct, so they're at least a level 3. When you get to the level 4 questions, they've done the process right, but they had to use the checkpoint. So they didn't know to apply the lowest common multiple process to this question, and then they didn't actually write what the dimensions are. And then this explaining question part B, they didn't really explain it. They could have just guessed on that one. So they're a level 3. Okay, on this exemplar, this student would get a level 3.5. Even though they can't do this level, even though they can't do this level 2 question, they've shown in other parts of the assessment that they can do prime factorization. So they can do it, they just didn't know in that first question that that's what they had to do. So it's a vocabulary thing. So they would get a 3.5. They're not a master yet. This exemplar, the student would get a 1.5 because they've started the level 2 process, the prime factorization, they've started it, but they don't know that this 6 is not a prime factor, so they haven't finished. And they can do parts, they can do part of the level 3, but they're not at that basic level 2, so they're at a 1.5.